Admiral Park Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the battleship Earth Shield and watched the enemy fleet approach through the dark void of space. The red dots on his tactical screen moved slowly but steadily toward Earth like a deadly disease spreading across the galaxy. Each dot was a Vorthak warship, and there were more than 500 of them. Park rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the much smaller cluster of blue dots that showed his own fleet. 37 ships was all humanity had, left after 3 years of war. Most were damaged and running low on supplies. The crew around him worked quietly at their stations, but he could see the fear in their faces. Captain Kim Dae-ho walked up to Park and saluted. His uniform was clean, but his face showed the strain of too many battles. "Admiral, the Mars colony? Reports they are ready for evacuation, but they need more time." "How much more time?" Park asked, even though he already knew the answer would not be good. 6 hours minimum, sir. The transport ships are old and overcrowded." Park nodded and looked back at the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet would reach Earth in 4 hours. There was no way the colony ships could escape in time. He had made this same impossible choice at 12 other human worlds, and each time he had lost more people and more ships. The communications officer turned around with a pale face. "Admiral, we are getting reports from the outer sensors. The Vorthak flagship is 3 times larger than anything we have seen before." On the main screen appeared an image that made everyone on the bridge go silent. The Vorthak flagship was a massive black ship covered in spikes and weapon ports. It was easily 5 kilometers long and looked like some kind of space monster rather than a normal warship. The name World Ender appeared on the screen in alien script. "My God," whispered Dr. Lee Minji, who was serving as the fleet science officer. She had been studying alien technology for the past 2 years, trying to find some weakness in their ships. "Look at those energy readings. That thing could destroy our entire fleet with one shot." Commander Choi Hyun-woo spoke up from the tactical station. "Admiral, we could try to ram it with the Earth shield, if we can damage their main weapon before they fire." "That would be suicide," Kim Dae-ho said quickly, "and it would leave the rest of the fleet without command." Park stared at the enemy fleet and felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. Every human world except Earth had fallen to the Vorthak Empire. The aliens had superior technology and numbers, and they showed no mercy to defeated enemies. Entire planets had been turned into lifeless rocks. The bridge doors opened, and more officers entered with reports from across the solar system. The moon base was ready to fight, but their weapons were mostly research tools. Jupiter Station had been evacuated weeks ago. The asteroid mining facilities had been abandoned. Earth was alone. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we are getting emergency signals from civilian ships trying to flee the system. Should we escort them?" Park looked at his fleet positions again. If he sent ships to protect the civilian vessels, he would have even fewer ships to defend Earth. But if he did not protect them, thousands of innocent people would die in the first wave of the attack. "Send the Busan and Incheon to escort the civilian ships," he ordered. "Tell them to get the people as far from Earth as possible." Now he had 35 ships left to face 500 enemy warships. The math was simple and horrible. Even if every human ship fought perfectly and destroyed 10 enemy ships each, they would still lose badly. Dr. Lee Minji moved to stand beside him. "Admiral, I have been thinking about something. The Vorthak have conquered dozens of species, but they always attack the same way. They use overwhelming force and expect quick surrender. What if we do something they do not expect?" "What do you mean?" "What if we broadcast a message to the entire galaxy? Tell every species what is happening here. Show them that humans will never surrender even when facing impossible odds. Maybe other species will realize they could fight back too." Park considered this idea. The Vorthak controlled most of the galaxy through fear. If other species saw humans fighting to the end, it might inspire them to rebel, but it would also mean accepting that Earth would fall. "Do it," he said finally. "Send the message on all frequencies. Tell the galaxy that humanity chooses to die fighting rather than live as slaves." The communications officer began working on the broadcast, while the enemy fleet continued to approach. On the screen, Park could see more details of the Vorthak ships. They were all different sizes and designs because the aliens had conquered many species and used their technology. Some ships looked like metal spiders while others resembled giant swords flying through space. Kim Dae-ho returned with more reports. The Mars colony evacuation is behind schedule. The last transport will not launch for 8 hours. Then we buy them 8 hours, Park said with determination he did not feel. The tactical officer looked up with confusion. Admiral, how can we hold that long against such a large fleet? Before Park could answer, the sensor station erupted with alarms. The officer monitoring long-range scanners called out in a shaking voice. Admiral, I am detecting something strange. There is a massive object approaching from dark space. Another Vorthak fleet, Kim Dae-ho asked. No, sir. The signature is completely different. It is huge, but it is not showing up clearly on our sensors. Like it is not completely there. Park moved to the sensor station and looked at the readings himself. There was definitely something massive moving toward their position, but the sensors could not get a clear picture of it. The object seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Could it be some kind of natural phenomenon? Dr. Lee Minji suggested. The sensor officer shook his head. No, ma'am. It is moving in a straight line directly toward the battle area, and it is moving fast, much faster than any known ship design. Park felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. Whatever was approaching could be another enemy fleet, or it could be something else entirely. In either case, it was heading straight for the biggest space battle in human history. The Vorthak fleet was now close enough that individual ships could be seen without magnification. Their black hulls absorbed light and made them look like holes in space. The flagship World Ender dominated the center of their formation with smaller ships spread out around it like a metal cloud of death. Admiral, the communications officer, announced. The galaxy-wide broadcast is ready. Park straightened his uniform and walked to the recording station. This might be the last message humanity ever sent to the stars. He looked directly into the camera and began to speak. To all species across the galaxy, this is Admiral Park Ji-woo of the Human Defense Fleet. Our world Earth is about to be attacked by the Vorthak Empire. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but we will not surrender. Humanity chooses to fight for freedom even if it means extinction. We hope our sacrifice will inspire others to resist tyranny. This is humanity's final message to the universe. We lived as free beings and we will die as free beings. The message began transmitting across the galaxy on every possible frequency. In a few hours, every species would know that humans had chosen death over slavery. The unknown object was getting closer, and the sensors were finally beginning to get better readings. Whatever it was appeared to be artificial and enormous, much larger than even the Vorthak flagship. Park returned to his command position and prepared to give the order to attack. His small fleet would charge into the enemy formation and try to damage as many ships as possible before being destroyed. It was hopeless, but it was better than doing nothing. The enemy fleet began to slow down as they entered the outer edge of the solar system. The World Ender moved to the front of the formation, and Park could see weapon ports opening along its hull. In a few minutes, the battle for Earth would begin. Then the sensors exploded with new contacts as something impossible happened in the space between the two fleets. The space between the human and Vorthak fleets suddenly twisted like water being stirred by an invisible hand. Reality seemed to bend and crack as something massive forced its way into normal space. The sensors on every ship went crazy as energy. Readings spiked beyond anything they had ever recorded. Admiral Park Ji-woo gripped his command chair as the Earth's shield shook from the spatial distortions. Around him, the bridge crew stared at their instruments in shock as impossible numbers scrolled across their screens. What in the name of... Captain Kim Dae-ho started to say, but his words were cut off as the distortion suddenly cleared. Where empty space had been moments before, now floated the largest warship anyone had ever seen. It was clearly human in design, but unlike any ship in the current fleet. The hull was a dark blue metal that seemed to absorb and reflect starlight at the same time. Strange symbols were carved along its sides that glowed with soft white light. Dr. Lee Minji moved to the science station and began scanning the mysterious vessel. Admiral, the ship is over 8 kilometers long. The hull material is unknown, but it appears to be some kind of advanced composite. And the energy readings. She paused and checked her instruments again. The power output is off the scale. The communications officer turned around with wide eyes. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the unknown ship. Audio only." "Put it through," Park ordered. A calm male voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect Korean. "Human Defense Fleet, this is Captain Nam Sunho of the KSRS Indomitable. We have been monitoring your situation. Prepare for immediate combat support." Park felt his heart skip a beat. The Indomitable was a name from history books. It had been the first human ship to attempt interstellar exploration over 200 years ago. The ship had vanished without a trace somewhere beyond the edge of known space. "This is Admiral Park Ji-woo," he responded. "Identify yourself. The Indomitable was lost centuries ago." "Admiral," came the reply. "We have much to discuss, but first we must deal with the immediate threat. I suggest you move your fleet to a safe distance. We are about to engage the enemy." Before Park could respond, the mysterious ship began to move toward the Vorthak fleet. It accelerated impossibly fast without any visible engine exhaust. The Vorthak ships immediately turned to face this new threat, and the flagship World Ender began charging its main weapons. Lieutenant Yoon Sora's voice came over the communication channel. "All Vorthak vessels, this is your only warning. Withdraw from this system immediately or face destruction." The Vorthak response was predictable. The World Ender fired its massive main gun directly at the Indomitable. The beam of destructive energy was powerful enough to cut a planet in half. But when it struck the human ship, something impossible happened. The beam seemed to bend around the hull and dissipate into space without causing any damage. "Impossible," whispered Commander Choi Hyun-woo from the tactical station. "No known technology can deflect that much energy." The Indomitable responded with weapons that defied everything humans knew about physics. Beams of golden light lanced out from ports along its hull and struck Vorthak ships with devastating effect. The enemy vessels did not simply explode. They seemed to come apart at the molecular level as their hulls dissolved into clouds of glowing particles. Engineer Bae Jin-woo's voice came over the communication system. "Target priority is the flagship. All secondary batteries focus fire on escort vessels." More weapons emerged from hidden ports along the Indomitable's hull. Missiles launched that seemed to bend space around them as they flew. When they struck enemy ships, the explosions created brief tears in reality itself that consumed everything within several kilometers. The Vorthak fleet tried to respond, but their weapons had no effect on the mysterious human ship. Energy beams passed through it as if it was not completely solid. Missiles exploded harmlessly against its hull. Even their most powerful plasma cannons could not scratch its surface. Park watched in amazement as the single human ship tore through the enemy fleet like a sword through paper. Vorthak vessels that had terrorized the galaxy for years were being destroyed with casual ease. The aliens had never faced technology like this. Dr. Lee Minji studied her sensor readings with growing excitement. "Admiral, the weapon systems on that ship are beyond anything in our databases. They seem to manipulate fundamental forces in ways we do not understand." "How is that possible?" Kim Dae-ho asked. "It is still a human ship, right? Before anyone could doubt." Answer: the Indomitable moved deeper into the Vorthak formation. Smaller ships tried to ram it but bounced off its hull like toys. The mysterious vessel continued its systematic destruction of the enemy fleet, with weapons that seemed more like controlled natural disasters than normal ship systems. Captain Nam Sun-ho's voice came over the channel again. "Admiral Park, your fleet should move to coordinates I am transmitting. The spatial distortions from our weapons could damage your ships if you remain too close." Park gave the order to withdraw to the designated coordinates. As his small fleet moved away, he continued to watch the impossible battle unfolding before him. In less than 20 minutes, the Indomitable had destroyed over half of the Vorthak fleet, including dozens of their most powerful ships. The enemy flagship, World Ender, tried to escape, but the human ship was too fast. The Indomitable appeared directly in front of the fleeing vessel and fired a single weapon. The beam cut the massive Vorthak ship cleanly in half, and both pieces drifted apart in clouds of debris and atmosphere. The remaining enemy ships immediately began to retreat, but they were not fast enough. The mysterious human vessel pursued them with relentless efficiency. Its weapons reached across impossible distances to strike fleeing ships. Reality bent and twisted as each shot tore through space to find its target. Within an hour, the entire Vorthak fleet had been destroyed or driven away. The Indomitable slowly turned and approached the human fleet. As it drew closer, Park could see more details of its construction. The hull was covered in symbols and designs that looked both human and alien at the same time. "Admiral Park, Captain." Nam's voice came over the communication system. "I'm requesting permission to dock with your flagship. We have much to discuss." "Permission granted?" Park replied, though he was not sure what else he could say. Nothing about this situation made any sense. A shuttle launched from the mysterious ship and approached the Earth's shield. The small craft was as strange as its mothership, with hull materials that seemed to shift and change in the starlight. When it landed in the shuttle bay, Park and his senior officers were waiting to meet whoever was aboard. The shuttle door opened and 3 figures in human uniforms stepped out. They looked completely normal except for their eyes, which seemed to hold depths of knowledge and experience that no human should possess. The man in front was tall with graying hair and bore the insignia of a ship captain. "Admiral Park," the man said with a slight bow. "I am Captain Nam Sunho. This is Lieutenant Yoon Sora and Engineer Bae Jinwoo. We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but the situation required immediate action." Park studied the 3 visitors carefully. They appeared to be normal humans, but something about them felt different. They moved with perfect coordination, and their eyes seemed to see everything at once. "Captain Nam," Park said slowly. "The Indomitable disappeared over 200 years ago. How are you here, and how do you possess such advanced technology?" Nam smiled sadly. "That is a long story, Admiral. The short version is that we did not disappear. We found something in the darkness between the stars. Something that changed us and gave us the tools we needed to defend humanity." "What kind of something?" Dr. Lee Minji asked with scientific curiosity. Lieutenant Yoon Sora spoke for the first time. "The ruins of a civilization that came before us, Admiral. They left behind knowledge and technology beyond current human understanding. We have spent 2 centuries learning from them." Engineer Bae Jinwoo nodded. "The weapons you saw today are just the beginning. The real war against the darkness is about to start, and humanity must be ready." "What darkness?" Kim Dae-ho demanded. "The Vorthak fleet has been defeated." Captain Nam's expression became grave. "The Vorthak are not the real enemy, Commander. They are slaves to something far worse. Something that has been waiting in the dark spaces between galaxies for the right moment to emerge." Park felt a chill run down his spine. After everything humanity had endured, there was still a greater threat waiting in the shadows. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Time," Nam replied. "And trust. The knowledge we have gained must be shared with all of humanity if we are to survive what is coming. But the process is dangerous, and not everyone will survive the transformation." Kadir. Shuttle Bay fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications of what they had just heard. Humanity had been saved from one threat only to learn of something even worse waiting in the darkness. But for the first time in years, Park felt something. He had almost forgotten hope. The Lunar Research Station had never seen so much activity. Ships from the enhanced human fleet docked at every available port, while teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock. Dr. Lee Minji walked through corridors filled with technology she could barely comprehend as members of the Indomitable's crew shared their impossible knowledge. Captain Nam Sunho stood in the main briefing room, surrounded by holographic displays showing star maps and alien symbols. Admiral Park Ji-woo and his senior officers listened in stunned silence as the truth about humanity's past and future was revealed. 206 years ago, the Indomitable was exploring the edge of known space when we detected artificial structures, Nam explained. "We found a network of ruins on dead worlds scattered across thousands of light years. The builders called themselves the architects." Dr. Kang Min-seok stepped forward carrying a device that looked like a crystal pyramid. "The architects were not just another alien species, Admiral. They were humanity's predecessors. Our genetic code contains markers they placed there millions of years ago." Dr. Lee Minji studied the readings on her scanner as the device was activated. "The DNA sequences are definitely artificial, but they are so deeply integrated into human genetics that they appear natural. That is because they are natural now, Lieutenant Yoon Sora said. The architects seeded hundreds of worlds with life that would eventually evolve into species capable of inheriting their legacy. Humans are one of their most successful experiments. Commander Choi Hyunwoo shook his head in disbelief. You are saying that humans were created by ancient aliens, not created, Engineer Bae Jinwoo corrected. Guided. The architects took primitive life and gave it the genetic potential to develop intelligence and technology. They wanted to ensure their knowledge would not die with them. Captain Kim Dae-ho leaned forward with interest. What happened to these architects? The room fell silent, and Nam's expression became dark. They were destroyed by something that came from the spaces between galaxies, an ancient enemy that consumes entire civilizations and turns the survivors into slaves, the same force that now controls the Vorthak Empire. On the holographic display appeared images of creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. They had no fixed form but flowed like liquid shadow with eyes that burned like dying stars. Even looking at the recordings made everyone in the room feel cold and afraid. The Devourers, Nam said quietly. They feed on the life force of entire worlds and use the minds of conquered species to build their armies. The architects fought them for millions of years before finally being overwhelmed. Pilot Oh Yoonji entered the briefing room carrying reports from the enhanced fighter squadrons. Captain, the Vorthak survivors from the Earth battle have transmitted our location to their masters. We estimate 12 hours before the first Devourer ships arrive. Admiral Park felt his heart sink. How many ships? Unknown but based on architect. Records they will send enough to ensure our complete destruction. The Devourers do not take chances when dealing with potential threats. Dr. Lee Minji studied the architect technology with growing excitement despite the approaching danger. This genetic programming explains so much about human behavior. Our drive to explore and create and protect others. We were designed to be guardians. Exactly, Dr. Kang Min-seok agreed. Every major human achievement has been guided by architect programming in our genes. The development of spaceflight and computers and even our military tactics. We are becoming what they intended us to be. Sergeant Han Woojin approached with a group of enhanced human Marines. Their movements were fluid and perfectly coordinated, and their eyes held the same deep knowledge as the Indomitable's crew. Admiral, we have completed the first phase of enhancement for your volunteers. Park looked at the transformed soldiers with amazement. They appeared human, but something fundamental had changed. They moved with inhuman grace and seemed to communicate without speaking aloud. The enhancement process connects human consciousness to architect quantum networks, Nam explained. Those who survive the transformation gain access to knowledge and abilities beyond normal human limits. How many survive? Kim Dae-ho asked with concern. About 60%. Yoon Sora replied honestly. The process is dangerous because human minds were not designed to handle architect technology directly, but those who succeed become something more than human. Dr. Lee Minji examined the enhanced Marines with her scanners. Their brain activity is off the scale. They are processing information at rates that should be impossible. One of the Marines spoke without moving his lips. His voice seemed to come from the air itself. We can hear the quantum fluctuations of space and feel the movement of distant stars. The universe is alive in ways normal humans cannot perceive. The enhancement is not just physical, Engineer Bae Jinwoo added. It changes how humans interact with reality itself. Enhanced individuals can interface directly with architect technology and understand concepts that have no words in any human language. On the displays around the room, new images appeared showing the interior of architect ruins. The structures were impossibly complex with geometry that hurt to look at directly, but the enhanced humans moved through them easily, as if the alien architecture was perfectly natural. We spent 2 centuries exploring architect ruins and learning from their records, Nam continued. We discovered that Earth itself is built on the foundation of an ancient architect stronghold. That is why humans developed so quickly compared to other species. Admiral Park stared at the recordings of his homeworld taken from space. Hidden beneath the familiar continents were energy patterns that formed a massive geometric design. Earth was not just a planet but a dormant architect facility waiting to be activated. The Devourers know about Earth's true nature, Dr. Kang Min-seok said grimly. That is why they are so determined to destroy humanity before we can awaken our full potential. Then we need to wake up fast, Commander Choi Hyun-woo said. What do you need from us? Captain Nam looked around the room at the gathered human officers. We need volunteers for the enhancement process. The more humans who can interface with architect technology, the better our chances of survival. I volunteer, Dr. Lee Minji said immediately. As do I, Captain Kim Dae-ho added. One by one, the other officers stepped forward to volunteer despite knowing the risks. Park felt pride swell in his chest as he watched his people choose to face the unknown for the sake of their species. The process takes 6 hours, Yoon Sora explained. During that time, the volunteers' consciousness is temporarily merged with architect quantum networks. Most humans experience visions of the ancient war and gain understanding of technologies. That seemed like magic. Sergeant Han Woo-jin gestured toward a corridor lined with strange devices. The enhancement chambers are ready, Admiral. We can process 12 volunteers at once. As the volunteers were led away, Park remained in the briefing room with Nam and the other enhanced humans. Captain, I need to know the truth. What are our real chances against these Devourers? Nam was quiet for a long moment before answering. If we fight them the way the architects did, we will lose eventually. The Devourers have consumed thousands of galaxies and their forces are nearly infinite. Then how do we win? By doing something the architects never tried, Pilot Oh Yoonji said. We unite the entire galaxy against them. Not just humans, but every species that values freedom. The Vorthak Empire controls most of the galaxy, Park pointed out. The Vorthak are slaves, Admiral, Engineer Bae Jinwoo replied. Free them from Devourer control and they become potential allies. The same is true for dozens of other conquered species. Dr. Kang Min-seok activated a new display showing the galaxy with areas of Devourer influence marked in black. Over 70% of known space is under their control. But most of the conquered species were enslaved rather than destroyed. Their populations and industrial capacity could be turned against their masters. A galaxy-wide rebellion, Park said with growing understanding. Led by enhanced humans using architect technology, Nam confirmed. It is the only strategy that has a chance of success. Alarms began sounding throughout the station as long-range sensors detected approaching ships. The Devourers had found them sooner than expected. How long do we have? Park asked. Lieutenant Yoon Sora studied the tactical displays. 2 hours before they enter weapons range. The enhancement process for your volunteers will not be complete. In time, then we fight with what we have, Park said grimly. Admiral Nam said urgently. There is something else you need to know. The Indomitable was not the only human ship to find the architects. We have been building a fleet for 2 centuries, ships and crews enhanced with technology beyond anything. The Devourers have faced new contacts appeared on the displays as dozens of enhanced human vessels decloaked throughout the solar system. Each ship was unique but all bore the same strange hull materials and impossible weapon systems as the Indomitable. The hidden fleet, Park breathed. Humanity's children returning home. Nam replied. The real war for the galaxy is about to begin. Space around Earth filled with impossible ships as the hidden human fleet revealed itself. Each vessel was a masterpiece of hybrid human and architect technology, with hulls that seemed to bend light and weapons that could tear holes in reality. Admiral Park Ji-woo watched from the bridge of his enhanced flagship as humanity's true strength was finally shown. The transformation of the Soul's Pride had been completed just hours before the Devourer attack. Captain Kim Dae-ho stood at his new command station, feeling the quantum networks flowing through his enhanced mind. The ship's systems responded to his thoughts rather than his voice, and he could sense every detail of the approaching enemy fleet. Admiral, the enhancement process was successful for 9 of our 12 volunteers, Dr. Lee Minji reported. Her eyes now held the same deep knowledge as the other enhanced humans, and her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in multiple dimensions. The 3 who did not survive the process died peacefully. Admiral Song Kyung-min's voice came over the communication network that connected all enhanced humans. All fleet elements report ready for combat. We have 43 enhanced vessels and crews trained in architect warfare techniques. Through the quantum link, Park could sense the minds of thousands of enhanced humans working together with perfect coordination. Their thoughts flowed like music, and their tactical planning happened at speeds no normal human could follow. Captain Ryu Ji-young commanded the stealth carrier Busan Thunder from its hidden position near Jupiter. Enemy fleet composition is consistent, with standard devourer invasion patterns. 12 biomechanical dreadnoughts supported by several hundred smaller vessels. The approaching enemy ships were nightmares made real. Their hulls were living tissue merged with advanced technology, and they moved through space like swimming predators. Tentacles covered in weapon ports writhed along their sides, and their surfaces pulsed with veins of dark energy. Major Im Tae-hyun led the enhanced super soldier program from the assault ship Daegu Storm. All enhancement facilities across the solar system report successful integration of architect combat protocols. Human Marines are ready for boarding operations, Dr. Lee. Minji worked frantically in her laboratory analyzing samples of devourer biotechnology captured from previous battles. Admiral, I am detecting quantum signatures consistent with mind control systems. The enemy is using psychic networks to coordinate their forces. Can we disrupt these networks? Admiral Park asked. Possibly. Dr. Kang Min-seok replied from his position, aboard the research vessel Gwangju Hope. Architect technology includes defensive systems designed specifically to counter devourer psychic attacks. The first wave of enemy vessels entered the outer solar system moving at impossible speeds. Their biomechanical hulls shifted and changed as they flew, and Park could see smaller organisms being launched from their surfaces like missiles made of living flesh. Captain Nam Sunho coordinated the defense from the Indomitable, using quantum communication networks that operated faster than light. All ships maintain formation until the enemy commits to their attack pattern. Let them come to us. The enhanced human fleet waited in perfect silence as the devourer ships approached. Each human vessel was connected to the others through quantum entanglement, creating a collective intelligence that could react to threats before they fully materialized. Contact in 30 seconds, Lieutenant Yoon Sora announced. Enemy dreadnoughts are charging their primary weapons. The space between the fleet suddenly erupted with energy as the devourers opened fire. Beams of dark energy that could dissolve matter at the atomic level lanced toward the human ships, but the enhanced vessels were ready. Defensive systems based on architect technology created bubbles of altered space-time around each human ship. The enemy weapons struck these barriers and were absorbed or reflected back at their sources. Several devourer vessels were destroyed by their own weapons. Return fire, Admiral Song Kyung-min commanded. The enhanced human fleet responded with weapons that defied conventional physics. Beams of pure creation energy tore through enemy hulls and caused their biomechanical systems to turn against themselves. Reality warping missiles created temporary black holes that consumed entire enemy squadrons. Engineer Park Ha-young worked frantically aboard the weapons development ship Ulsan Forge to coordinate the attack. Primary targets are the dreadnoughts. Their destruction will disrupt the enemy's command structure. The battle became a dance of impossible technologies, as both fleets deployed weapons that operated outside normal physics. Space itself became a weapon as the combatants warped gravity and time to gain advantage over their enemies. Captain Kim Dae-ho felt the quantum networks flowing through his enhanced mind as he maneuvered the Soul's Pride through the chaotic battlefield. Enemy biomissiles tried to track his ship, but the enhanced engines allowed movement that ignored momentum and inertia. Target the lead dreadnought, he ordered his crew. All weapons focus fire on its command cluster. The Soul's Pride fired its main gun and a beam of golden energy struck the enemy flagship. The biomechanical hull began to dissolve as architect technology unraveled the molecular bonds holding the living ship together. Within seconds, the massive vessel broke apart in a cloud of organic debris. But the devourers were not easily defeated. The remaining dreadnoughts began to merge with each other, forming an even larger creature that pulsed with dark energy. Tentacles, thousands of meters long, reached out to grab human ships while weapon ports opened across its surface. They are forming a superorganism, Dr. Lee Minji warned. The psychic network is becoming more powerful as they merge. Commander Lim Dong-yuk piloted his sacrifice ship Mokpo Valor directly toward the enemy superorganism. His vessel was loaded with experimental weapons designed to disrupt biomechanical systems. All ships clear the target zone. I am beginning my attack run. The Mokpo Valor accelerated toward the merged devourer creature, while enemy weapons tried to stop it. The ship's hull began to glow as quantum reactors overloaded and reality warped around the approaching vessel. Lim, don't do this, Admiral Park called over the communication network. We can find another way. Admiral. This is what we trained for, Lim replied calmly. The enhancement process showed me what needs to be done. The sacrifice ship struck the center of the enemy superorganism and detonated in an explosion that created a brief tear in spacetime. The devourer creature was torn apart as the reality storm consumed its living hull and scattered its components across several dimensions. But even as the immediate threat was destroyed, new enemy reinforcements were arriving. The devourers had committed a massive fleet to the conquest of Earth, and more ships were emerging from dark space every minute. We cannot win through direct combat alone, Captain Nam Soon-ho announced. It is time to implement the Liberation Protocol. Across the galaxy, enhanced human strike teams had been waiting for this moment. Small groups of soldiers enhanced with architect technology began attacking devourer control facilities on conquered worlds. Their mission was to free enslaved species and show them that resistance was possible. Dr. Shin Ji-soo worked from her laboratory ship to coordinate the consciousness transfer protocols that would free enslaved alien minds. The psychic dampening fields are online. Begin liberation sequence for target worlds. On a dozen worlds, simultaneously enhanced human teams struck at the heart of devourer control systems. The aliens had ruled through fear and psychic domination, but architect technology could break those chains. The first liberated world was a Vorthak military base where thousands of soldiers had been enslaved for decades. As the psychic control systems failed, the alien warriors remembered their true nature and turned their weapons against their former masters. Liberation successful on Vorthak Prime, Major Im Tae-hyun reported. The planetary defense fleet is joining our cause. More worlds followed as the Liberation Protocol spread across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for generations suddenly remembered freedom and rose up against their oppressors. The Devourer Empire began to fracture as its foundation of fear and control crumbled. Admiral Park watched the tactical displays as friendly contacts appeared throughout known space. How many species have joined us? 17 major civilizations and 43 minor ones, Captain Ryu Ji-young replied. The Vorthak Empire is in complete revolt against Devourer control. The enhanced human fleet continued to battle the immediate threat, while their liberation teams worked across the galaxy. Each freed world provided more ships and soldiers for the growing resistance movement, but the Devourers were not passive opponents. As their control systems failed, they began a campaign of total destruction, rather than lose their slaves. Entire worlds were consumed by biomechanical swarms that left nothing but empty space behind. Admiral, we are receiving distress calls from 47 worlds, Lieutenant Yoon Sora reported with anguish in her enhanced voice. The Devourers are destroying everything they cannot control. Then we need to move faster, Admiral Song Kyungmin replied grimly. All available ships proceed to emergency liberation protocol. The enhanced human fleet split into smaller task forces and spread across the galaxy. Each group carried liberation teams and the technology needed to free enslaved worlds. It was a desperate race against time as they tried to save as many species as possible. The battle for Earth continued as more Devourer Ray, the galactic core blazed with the light of 10 billion stars as the final battle for the universe began. Admiral Park Ji-woo commanded the combined fleet of free species from aboard the enhanced flagship Unity of Worlds. Around him floated the greatest armada in galactic history, with ships from dozens of liberated civilizations fighting together against their common enemy. The Devourer response had been swift and terrible. When their control systems failed across the galaxy, they had abandoned all pretense and revealed their true nature. Massive biomechanical ships emerged from dark space carrying weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The ancient enemy of the architects had finally shown its full strength. Captain Nam Sun-ho stood at the quantum communication array coordinating the enhanced human fleet through thought alone. His consciousness had evolved beyond normal human limits, and he could perceive the battle across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Admiral, the architect's stronghold is directly ahead. The galaxy's heart is located at the center of the complex. The ancient architect facility was a structure that defied description. It existed partially outside normal space, and its geometry hurt to look at directly. Massive towers of crystalline material reached across light years, while energy conduits carried power that could fuel entire civilizations. Dr. Lee Minji worked frantically at her science station analyzing the readings from the stronghold. Admiral, the facility appears to be a weapon of some kind. The power levels are beyond anything we have ever encountered. It is more than a weapon, Dr. Kang Min-sok replied through the quantum network. According to architect records, the galaxy's heart can reset the fundamental forces that allow the Devourers to exist in normal space. Engineer Park Ha-young coordinated the final preparations from her position aboard the weapons ship Incheon Thunder. The device requires massive amounts of consciousness energy to activate. The architects used the combined mental power of their entire species. "How many minds do we need?" Admiral Park asked. "Unknown," Captain Kim Dae-ho replied from his position, commanding the assault fleet. "But every enhanced human and liberated alien consciousness will need to link together through the quantum network." The Devourer fleet moved to intercept them with biomechanical ships the size of moons. These vessels were more than warships. They were living ecosystems filled with billions of enslaved minds, all focused on a single purpose: the destruction of everything that opposed their masters. Captain Ryu Ji-young commanded the stealth forces from her hidden position among the crystalline towers. Enemy fleet composition includes 3 superorganisms and over 2,000 support vessels. They are preparing to use psychic warfare. The battle began when the Devourer superorganisms launched psychic attacks designed to crush the minds of their enemies. Waves of pure terror and despair washed over the Allied fleet as the ancient evil tried to break their will to fight. But the enhanced humans were ready. Their consciousness had been strengthened by architect technology, and they formed a protective mental barrier around the Allied fleet. The psychic attacks broke against their defenses like waves against a cliff. "All ships attack pattern Delta," Admiral Song Kyung-min commanded. "Focus fire on the enemy command vessels." The combined fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Human ships used reality warping technology, while Vorthak vessels employed plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Former slave species turned their own biomechanical weapons against their former masters. The space around the architect's stronghold became a storm of energy and matter as impossible technologies clashed. Ships phased in and out of normal space, while weapons that operated outside conventional physics tore holes in reality itself. Major Im Tae-hyun led enhanced super soldiers in boarding actions against enemy vessels. Penetration successful on Target 7. Beginning liberation of enslaved crew members. The Devourers had made a critical mistake. Many of their ships carried enslaved alien crews who could be freed using architect consciousness transfer technology. As more minds were liberated, the enemy fleet began to turn against itself. Dr. Shinjisu worked desperately to coordinate the consciousness transfer protocols. "We have freed over 50,000 enslaved minds, but the process is taking too long. Enemy reinforcements are arriving faster than we can liberate them." New Devourer fleets emerged from dark space carrying biomechanical horrors that had consumed entire galaxies. The ancient enemy was throwing everything they had at this final battle because they knew that defeat here would mean the end of their reign of terror. "Admiral, we need to activate the galaxy's heart now," Commander Lim Dong-hyuk called from his assault ship. "We cannot hold them off much longer. The consciousness link is not complete," Dr. Lee Minji protested. "We need more minds connected to the network." Captain Nam Sun-ho studied the readings from the architect facility with his enhanced perception. "There is another way. The original crew of the Indomitable can sacrifice ourselves to provide the missing consciousness energy." "Absolutely not," Admiral Park replied. "There has to be another solution," Admiral Nam said calmly. We have lived for over 2 centuries preparing for this moment. Our consciousness has been enhanced beyond normal human limits. We can provide the power needed to activate the device, Lieutenant. Yunsora spoke through the quantum network with sadness in her enhanced voice. It is what we were meant to do. The architects left us a legacy, and now we pass it on to you. The enhanced crew of the Indomitable began the consciousness transfer process that would merge their minds with the galaxy's heart. Engineer Bei Jinwoo coordinated the final technical preparations while pilot Oh Yoonji guided their ship toward the center of the architect facility. All enhanced humans, link your consciousness to ours, Nam commanded. Together we can provide enough mental energy to power the device. Across the battlefield, thousands of enhanced human minds joined the quantum network. Their combined consciousness created a mental storm that could be felt across multiple dimensions. The galaxy's heart began to respond as unimaginable energies flowed through its crystalline structure. The Devourers sensed what was happening and launched a desperate attack on the architect facility. Biomechanical superorganisms merged together into creatures the size of small planets and threw themselves at the crystalline towers. Protect the facility, Admiral Park ordered. All ships converge on the stronghold, the Allied fleet formed, a defensive shell around the architect structure as the consciousness transfer continued. Ships from dozens of species fought side by side against the ancient evil that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. The Indomitable reached the center of the facility, and Captain Nam began the final activation sequence. Admiral, it has been an honor serving with you. Take care of our galaxy. The consciousness of the enhanced crew merged completely with the galaxy's heart, and the device activated with power that shook the fundamental structure of space and time. Reality warped and twisted as forces beyond comprehension were unleashed. A wave of pure creation energy spread out from the galactic core, moving faster than light. Wherever it touched Devourer biomechanical technology, it unraveled the quantum bonds that allowed the creatures to exist in normal space. The ancient enemy found themselves being forced back into the dark dimensions they had emerged from. It is working, Dr. Lee Minji called out in amazement. The Devourers are being banished from our reality. Across the galaxy, the biomechanical fleets began to dissolve as the wave of creation energy reached them. Enslaved minds were freed as their psychic bonds were broken, and entire species suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. The battle at the galactic core ended as the remaining Devourer forces were consumed by the reality storm. The ancient enemy of the architects had finally been defeated, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Admiral, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy, Captain Kim Daeho announced. All Devourer forces have been eliminated, or forced to retreat. The war is over. But the celebration was brief as they realized what they had lost. The enhanced crew of the Indomitable had sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy, and their consciousness was now part of the galaxy's heart forever. They are not gone, Dr. Kang Min-seok said quietly. I can sense their minds within the quantum network. They have become something greater than human. Over the following months, the galaxy began to heal from centuries of war and oppression. The liberated species formed the Galactic Covenant with humanity, serving as the guardians of peace. Admiral Park was elected as the first High Admiral of the combined fleets. Dr. Lee Minji established research facilities to study architect technology and help other species enhance themselves safely. The knowledge gained from the ancient ruins was shared freely with all members of the Covenant. Captain Kim Daeho led exploration missions to discover more architect strongholds and ensure that the galaxy remained protected from future threats. His enhanced abilities allowed him to navigate the dangerous regions of space where the ancient ruins were hidden. The transformation of humanity continued as more people volunteered for the enhancement process. Children born after the war showed natural abilities that previous generations had never possessed. The genetic programming left by the architects was finally being fully expressed in Forcement's Ari.